that Memphis experience, I was like, oh, Trick is just like, she's moved out, she's like living it up, she's like got these first like teaching jobs, she's just making life happen.
Yeah.
And then you go visit you and it's like, I don't think she's safe. I don't think she's safe. I don't think she's safe. There's a door in your apartment that connects to the next apartment over, and it's I don't think you're safe. It's not in a good neighborhood. The speed bumps wreck your alignment. It's not a safe place.
4, 3, 2, 1.
We gotta work on the problems. We gotta link up to solve them. We gotta keep on evolving. Gotta be side by side. Give it up. Gotta be side by side. Everyone. Gotta be side by side. Yeah. We gotta be side by side. Gotta be side by side. We gotta be side by side. Everyone. Gotta be side by side. Thanks for tuning in to Talks with Tatum. This is Side by Side Podcast, and so happy that you're here with us today. Today we got a really, really special one. I've been saying that a lot on these podcasts, but it's really the truth today because we got a lady on here that I didn't want to have on here. I just need to have that for the record. I didn't want to have her on here because she knows some things about me that don't need to be out for the world to know. And also, I don't really like this person. And one of the important things when you're booking podcasts is that you don't put anybody on that you don't like, because the chemistry's off when you don't like the people. But I just need to put that out there before you listen, because this might not be one that you want to watch because she sucks. I'm kidding. It's a person that I love more than a lot of people in the world. She's really special to me for a lot of different reasons, but mostly for the way that she has always been a thorn in my side my entire life, from the moment of my birth, most likely. But we got Dr. Patrika Brown on the Side by Side Podcast today. Yes. How's it going?
Well, enjoying my tea.
We got tea because we're going to spill some tea today. So I'm going to start out with a story here.
Uh-oh.
First, I got to preface some things, okay? So I don't like her. She sucks. We've got that stuff out of the way. But the reason I don't like her is because she's 5 months older than me. So that's one reason. And our parents were born to a woman that had 2 children. Boy and girl, and then our parents only had 1 child apiece. We're the only grandkids, 5 months apart, no siblings. So we grew up like brother and sister more than anything. Always every weekend to Nana's house, which is our grandmother, who just called, by the way. And we spent a ton of time together growing up. And in that kind of relationship, and somebody's supposed to be your sister, like your roll dog. They're not supposed to betray you. And really early on in my relationship with Trika, I learned that I couldn't trust her, and I really didn't like her. So I had a really bad habit, and I think lots of kids do, of using a lot of profanity as a kid. And I had this really clean-cut image growing up. Nothing like the image that I have now. But when I was a kid, everybody thought I was perfect all the time. And I wouldn't dare use profanity, right? And my Nana really thought this of me. And, I appreciated being able to walk through life and have that cachet of this idea that I'm this perfect child. And she doesn't need to know what I do when the adults aren't around. And we couldn't have been much more than 10. We were pretty young. And we're in the backyard. We're cleaning up sticks and stuff. And I didn't want to be there. And so I'm just cussing up a storm, and then there's a bee, and I'm allergic and terrified of flying things. And I start cussing at this bee. And this lady hears me cussing, and she doesn't do the friendly, sisterly thing. She goes and gets Nana and finds an excuse to bring Nana to the backyard in the back door so that Nana can observe my lack of perfection. What kind of traitor does that? You want to explain yourself after all these years?
Okay, so let's back it up. First of all, lack of perfection. I was always the like, she's going to be the bad kid. Everyone thought I was going to be the bad kid. So I had to prove to them that if I was going to be bad, we were going to be bad together.
You're going to drag me down with you. Okay.
It was epic. And the look on Nana's face was like, vengeance is mine. Let's be honest. It was glorious.
It was pure betrayal. And she's never, I mean, in the 20 years since, she's never looked at me the same. Because she knows what's brimming beneath the surface is a little bit of deviance.
True.
But I remember growing up, and I don't know if it was the 5 months ahead thing. I don't know if it was like this aim in you to be like, prove everybody wrong. But I remember you always like excelling at all these different things. And I remember being so jealous as a kid. Like you'd get an award for like poetry or short stories or something. And I'd be like, are you for real? Like I could write a better poem than that. Like it's not even good. I remember thinking that and like really having that conversation and like justifying it in my brain. Like that jealousy of like, it's not even good. And like, we're going to applaud. She gets an award for that. And it'd always be like some award at school or some trophy thing. Or like, we're going to one of your basketball games. And I'm like, but her jumper's broke. It's broken.
I made him.
But, I mean, you got to serve as a kind of shining light and a beacon of like, what excellence looks like. Yeah. And you carried that through. I mean, much more than me with a desire in school. I mean, you excelled and you enjoyed the process of the schooling thing all the way to getting this doctorate. And, obviously, your mom plays a part in that with her book smarts and her desire to push the education piece. But where does that come from, that drive for you to go all the way to that point? Because it's not a thing most people do.
I think it comes from the fact of like just setting goals. Like when you really want to set a goal for something, I'm like, I have to meet this goal. Like come hell or high water, I have to meet this goal. And again, for mama, like my mama was a beast. She was a single mama, but she was a beast.
Yeah.
Like she got me so independent, you know, to the point where it's like, you have to meet this goal. Mm-hmm. And so it was just that drive to just keep going and to break the curses or, you know, to break all the things that were holding us back when we were kiddos. So.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely had that, that like desire to prove people wrong.
Yeah.
And it definitely fueled you, and like getting to see that from afar. I mean, you were the first person that, like, we grew up in Columbia. And like Columbia is very much this environment of like things are kind of so nice in Columbia that it does engender this idea of like, why would I ever leave this community?
Right.
But it really is important to development to like step outside of the safety net in some sort. And you were one of the first people that was like, no, not only am I gonna jump ship, like I'm gonna go to Memphis.
Yeah. I had to sow some oats.
I'm gonna go to Memphis.
Yeah.
And I remember going to visit you, and I was expecting. I had a ton of friends that went to college and, you know, did these different things and had moved away, and they're like living in like, you know, college living in a lot of ways is like almost luxury, like the places that are built for college students,
right,
and that kind of thing, and even some early professionals. But until that Memphis experience, I was like, oh, Trick is just like, she's moved out, she's like living it up, she's like got these first like teaching jobs, she's just making life happen.
Yeah.
And then you go visit you and it's like, I don't think she's safe. I don't think she's safe. I don't think she's safe. There's a door in your apartment that connects to the next apartment over, and it's I don't think you're safe. It's not in a good neighborhood. The speed bumps wreck your alignment. It's not a safe place. And
I love that place.
But it was formative for you.
It
like
was.
And it almost felt intentional that you'd put yourself in that kind of environment to like, I don't know, harden your what's the mentality there?
It was about the kids. So whenever I teach, I want to teach the roughest, the toughest, the poorest, the at-risk kids. Those are the ones I want. Those are my babies. And so I intentionally chose to live in a rundown area because that's where my kids were. And so it really was a safe space for me, despite there being like gang graffiti as soon as I walk out the door and the big random crazy lake. I don't know why I lived on that lake, but it really was a safe space that when I would go out to walk my dog, I would have 4 or 5 students who would walk with me. You know, it was just about being there for those kids, for them to actually see their teacher, you know, right down the road from them or in the apartment complex right next to them. So it was definitely intentional.
And this is really like from very early on, you kind of narrowed your focus towards education and really engendering yourself in the community and with kids. And how much of that is tied to the way that we grew up? How much, I mean, the people that were in your life, I mean, where'd it come from?
Having a single mom, I really had outsiders, I would say, and not necessarily outsiders like outside the family, but I had your parents who were like my second set of parents. Nana was definitely a parent, you know?
It's like your dad, yeah.
Yeah. And then I had just like Nana's friends. There were so many people. There was a community of people who like rallied around me and was like, Patrika, you're going to be this. I never lacked for anything because I had so many people supporting me. And so I really want to be that like community member for my students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's like evident in the way that you walk in a different way, right? Because like it's 2023.
Yeah.
The teaching profession in a lot of ways is not so much a profession anymore. It's like kind of just a touchstone to whatever you're going to do next. Or in a lot of ways, it's just kind of a job.
For sure.
And you can tell the people that walk that life and it's a profession, like a calling for them versus like it's just a paycheck for them. And like, I mean, you stand out in that way, certainly with the kids and your willingness to be a part of the community. What did that community mean to you growing up?
It's kind of cliche to say life or death, but really it's not, because we see so many of our classmates dying from all types of things, right? Like we're in our early 30s. We're not supposed to be dying now. Yeah. And so that community really was just that support system that show you a different pathway. I felt like we were able to spread our branches in athleticism with sports. And then we were at the Heritage Festival, like looking at pioneers or whatever those people were. Like, why do we do these things? Like, we were down there fishing, we were jumping in lakes. We just had such a broad experience that I want to bring that back. And so that really broad experience allowed me to take a little bit from here and a little bit from there and just kind of hone it in.
Yeah. I mean, I have so many like positive memories of like the way that we grew up. I mean, we'd go to our Nana's house and like pretty much run amok. And like the amount of, you know, as the warm weather comes on, I just think about all of those times that we spent up and down Hearth. Man. And like with the neighborhood kids and like playing in the front yard and like all of these experiences of really learning how to make the most of not a lot. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like we had, you know, there wasn't a park across the street. There wasn't an abundance of toys or things to play with. There wasn't a play set in the yard. There was, I mean, it was just, it was imagination. It was just desire to create a different world for yourself. Sure. And, you know, I drove with Jamila down Hearth, and I was like, this is Nana's old house, and this is where we used to play. And it's crazy how everything is so much smaller. That street is so much shorter. The front yard is so much smaller. The bushes that we used to hide in are so much smaller. The tree that we could never climb is so much shorter. And it's like the fondness that we look back on those experiences, it shaped the people that we became. I mean,
for sure.
Without creating that safe place for us to grow and develop and really foster the imagination and really foster like that we wanted to make something of ourselves, I don't think either of us would be here, you know?
Yeah, I found I was at the store buying something and I saw that they had a tether ball like set where you can buy the pole and the ball. And I'm like, dude, we spent years. We would find the biggest branch. Do you remember that? The deflated ball and try to tie. We tried to make our own tether ball like for years and never was successful.
Yeah.
Now kids can just go to the store and their parents buy it. And I'm like, man, that's what character came, I feel like, from our childhood. We spent years trying to build a tether ball. Never happened. But every summer we were right back across the street, you know, at that field. Like, who owned that place?
I don't know. I mean, for lack of a better word, it was an abandoned lot. I mean,
Right,
to call it a field is like an overly nice
True.
description.
It was a field to us.
But you know, the resourcefulness of you know, learning how to repurpose this ball, or you know, looking past the needles that may be there, the you know, the old liquor bottles or whatever, and like trying to find what we can actually purpose to create this world for ourselves was
For sure.
something that kids are missing a little bit with, you know, screens and phones and so much access to things.
Yeah.
You know, there's rarely a time that you're kicking a kid out of the house and saying, you know, go entertain yourself for 3 hours.
Yeah.
You know.
You can't. It's not safe anymore.
Yeah.
It's a struggle. They don't know what they're going to encounter.
Yeah.
And we knew how to encounter needles or glass. Kids these days, they don't know how to encounter things like that.
Nor should they. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll say that. I mean, there's a piece of me that mourns the idea that we can't just send them along on their way. But then there's also a piece of me that wonders about facilitation and how much us being facilitated in some of those situations would have changed our trajectory even more. I just think about like the freedom worked out so great for us because I think both of us are goal-oriented people, and it's more about the journey than the destination. And so no matter once you reach this goal or this destination, like you're still plowing onward. And like for those internally driven people, that freedom is a wonderful thing, right? Because the imagination is allowed to flourish and grow. But for a kid that really needs direction and really needs structure, the lack of facilitation, the lack of supervision and those things, I mean, it's deadly.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think we see that now in the world, and you know, the amount of kids that are just floundering, the amount of kids that have fallen into drugs and alcohol and these social situations that they don't have the capability to get themselves out of.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I look back fondly on those memories, but I think about all of the kids that we lost along the way that grew up the same way that we did, that never developed the tools to apply it to life. And I think about, you know, the biggest thing for Nana was always like orange drink, right? Like that was the thing. If you don't know what orange drink is, when you go to a regular grocery store, not Walmart, a regular grocery store, if you can find one, you may have to travel 50 miles to find one. Knowles or Gerbs.
Yeah.
They have in those big gallon milk jugs, red drink, orange drink, sometimes grape drink. And Nana really, really loved orange drink. Like, she wouldn't drink a lick of water.
She still doesn't.
Still doesn't drink water. But orange drink, which is, and the closest thing is like, it's like a super syrupy Kool-Aid.
It's all high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah, it's rough. And we developed a love for it, and she'd always have it in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
And I'm what they call a deep throat because I can put down some liquid. I can certainly drink with the best of them. And I would sneak in there, and we'd sneak in there and drink a little bit.
Yeah.
Drink all the orange drink. And that would pretty much be it.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be like a fridge full of, you know, snacks or lunch meat or like something that could, like, that would be pretty much it.
Yeah.
And
Maybe cheese.
some cheese.
Kool-Aid.
There's Kool-Aid.
Lots of liquids.
Every once in a while there'd be like some leftover something or Rotel and ketchup. And I remember like
Always ketchup.
I was a big kid and I was always hungry. You go to Nana's and it's like, you're probably going to get McDonald's for breakfast or lunch. And hopefully we thread the needle where you can get both breakfast and then I can get lunch, because she's the breakfast girl.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was pretty much it. And hopefully you had a full belly when you came.
Mm-hmm.
And, I remember ketchup and cheese sandwiches and like trying to make the most of Kix or something, cereal, and and trying to heat up crayons in the microwave and like stuff like that. And it's like, you look back and that environment could have been super detrimental to like our development.
Yeah.
Because we're supposed to be different people than we turned out to be.
I agree.
I mean, coming from that environment and coming from the things that we saw.
Yeah.
The environment that was around us all the time.
Yeah. We experienced a lot as kids.
And how did, what's the turning point for you looking back on that to say, this is the thing that got me to look in a different direction or to reach for something more than that?
I think it's the way our parents and Nana tackled situations. So I never felt poor, even though looking back, we were poor, I never felt like we were lacking anything. Now I look back and I'm like, man, you had that as a kid. It's just like, I just think about that time when we were in Mississippi with your parents,
mm-hmm.
and that was a struggle. And so the way we always had conversations about things, our family would always converse, and they would be free to talk. My mom talked to me about everything.
Probably too much.
Everything. She was like, look, this is the situation. Yep, you saw it. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
So I think that really was a turning point where it's like, if I can get myself into a situation, as long as I can talk about it, or I can just face it head on and not shy away. I feel like a lot of people our age are turning to drugs, and I'm not doubting, like, I understand we get stressed and depressed, and those things are real. Like, I'm a mental health professional. Those things are real, but it's the way that you have to have some sort of tools in your toolbox to deal with those even before you even get to it.
Yeah.
And I felt like our family gave us that.
Well, there's certainly, like, in our community especially, there's a sense of hopelessness, right? And there's these cyclical natures. Like, we're driving through, we're in Hartsburg and driving through these things, and it's like, we didn't have access to this idea. Like, this is your family's plot of land that you've had these acres for hundreds of years. I mean,
yeah.
Or that you buy land and you build a house on it and you pass. We didn't have access to any of those things. We didn't know that. Like, we know one way of living.
Right.
And luckily, we kind of grew up in this age and with parents and people around us that open the eyes to the idea that there's more out there. And I'm so thankful for technology and some of the things that came about right when we were growing up,
right,
so that we could really see that there was something else. But that openness, I look back at kids now and other people's experiences, and I'm really sad sometimes that they didn't get to experience some of the things that we did, because I wouldn't be the person that I am without some of those experiences, without really seeing what life could be. For sure. Like, how bad things really could be. Because now something happens and I'm like, that's not even
yeah.
I remember going through stuff in Texas and coming home to eviction things on the door and not having enough money to having to make a decision whether I'm going to pay, whether I'm going to feed myself or whether I'm going to pay for rent, and all these different decisions. And like that being so foundational to my development, who I am. And so now something happens and it's like,
yeah, let's just do
this
it.
is not life or death.
Yeah.
This is not that big of a struggle, and so it puts everything in perspective.
Yeah.
But when you have that hopelessness and you have no perspective, I mean, everything's the end of the world.
For sure.
And yeah.
I remember thinking that our aunt in Kansas City was rich and that our uncle in St. Louis was rich. And so that was another thing, like, oh, when I grow up, I want to be like them. I want to make, and then now it's like, yo,
they owned homes.
They owned homes
and had decent vehicles and some of these things. And
yeah,
it's like,
I thought they were rich people. Like, that's what I'm gonna aspire to be. And they did amazing things, and they still are. But it's now in this space, I'm like, yeah. Now I'm looking ahead. What comes after that?
Yeah, and it's the accessibility to I mean, that's the thing that I think for the next generations is our responsibility to cross that bridge is accessibility to information. You know, as we learn things and have access to things, it's important that we pass knowledge along. Because in a lot of ways, you have those people, right? You have this aunt, this uncle, these things. But what did they do to engender and pass along some of that information that they had that allowed them to get there to make sure that we lifted everybody else up too, so that you understand that, you know, frankly, it's a little bit more important that you have this home to your name than that very nice brand new vehicle.
True.
That you know, this one's gonna mean something to generations after you, and this thing right here was depreciating as soon as you drove it off the lot, right? But we don't have those kind of things in our culture. We don't have anybody that's teaching us about investments and about starting your own business, and it's kind of terrifying when you think about it.
Think about for our children, like, you can only do better. We just have to teach them, and it's not like we know it all, you know, but
no.
You just got to keep imparting that knowledge on to the next generation till someone finally gets it.
Which, you know, that's its own special battle. Is what does getting it look like?
For sure.
But you do all of this work, you get all of this schooling, and you travel and you live in different places, and now you find yourself back in Colombia. I know we got you back. We suckered you back in.
I know you did. I feel like y'all asked me a lot. No, there's a thing about coming home, and obviously we know there's a reason why, you know. Like, now I've got a beautiful baby, so I had to come home.
It happened for me too, you know. I thought I was out.
We were
close.
I keep telling myself I'm leaving again.
We were out. But I mean, it's a great community. But now you find yourself working with that community that you talk about, these really at-risk kids that are really struggling. And you know, what does the day-to-day with that look like?
So I'm a behavior specialist with the school district, and it's rough. It's different. School's not school. It's not the same school that we grew up in. It's definitely not the same school that our parents went through. Our babies are really struggling, and we can blame it on the pandemic. We can blame it on poverty. I can't necessarily say what the factors are, but there are so many factors. Our babies are in mental health crisis every day, consistently, fight, flight, or freeze mode, all day, every day. Like, the teacher draws someone's name, you don't get chosen, you might be a little upset. Kids are having full-blown panic attacks, full-blown temper tantrums. And on one end, teachers blame families blame teachers, and the biggest part is we just need to come together. Everyone needs to accept that little bit of blame that they have, because our kids are struggling. They are struggling. I see why the opioid epidemic is the way that it is. It's because we can't handle no or wait or not right now or in a little bit. Kids cannot handle that. That is like telling them you hate them and their parents died or something. Like, they really can't handle it. It's a mental health crisis.
Yeah. I mean, there's this idea of accountability that nobody wants to touch.
True.
But I mean, you think about it, you think about us growing up, and you think about, you know, the evolution of social media and some of these things. The instant gratification that's everywhere around us. So the idea of wait, or you can't have something now, or that you can't do this thing that you want to do in any given moment, it's foreign when all of the signals that are being sent to you are now, whatever you want.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, wait, patience. You know, you got to work harder, blah, blah, blah. I see it and I get it. But I remember a time when education was a parallel track, right? We were working together, parents and teachers, to accomplish the same goal, right? The ultimate goal is to raise kids up and to develop the community so that they can be the next people to carry that torch. And it's community, parents, family, and also educators, and also all of the adults that are in those children's lives, and it's all collective. But I don't know if the pandemic brought light to this, but it seemed like it was happening long before, that there's this fight between parents and the schools where it's like push and pull, and it doesn't feel collective, like partnership anymore.
Yeah. The school is a business. And so we can blame teachers, we can blame principals, superintendents, boards. It's a business. And so the realization is most of the actions are not coming from within. They're coming from state, and they're coming from government, and they're coming from community pushes. And so if we have 50 parents that say mask, but only 12 parents that say no mask, we're going to go for mask. Right? And if we have laws that come down that say you need to do this testing, and this testing, we're going to do that testing because that's where our funding is coming from. We're looking at property values, right? Property values fuel schools. But if we're not buying properties because we're not making money, then property values are decreasing. If we're not taking care of our property, then schools are underfunded. And what happens to underfunded schools? They go down. Education declines. So it's really a cycle. And then schools are trying to keep up with the technology. And then we're saying, but don't give the kids technology. But the world is technological, right? And so there's a balance. And it's always one-sided. We haven't been balanced in many, many years. And that's the struggle. And then we throw in this pandemic where parents had to be teachers. And they're like, I don't know how to do this. But get this, teachers don't either.
Yeah.
A first-year teacher is like a person on their first day on the job. Teaching is on-the-job training.
Without a ton of resources.
For sure.
Certainly without the resources that they might need.
Yeah.
But really is a symbiotic relationship, right? It's like each side has to feed each other. And everybody's malnourished right now.
Right.
It feels like.
There's no food. Where's the food?
So what has to happen? I mean, what's the change that's necessary in order to bridge the gap that's there?
We all need to sit down at the table. And literally physically sit down at the table, not the Zoom stuff. Like, parents need to say what they need, and education needs to listen. And education needs to say what they need. And parents need to listen. Education starts at home. But it has to be finished at school.
But okay, I hear you. Education starts at home. But if I'm a single parent and I've got multiple jobs and I'm finally in a place where I'm dealing with my trauma and my mental health, how am I in a position to teach my kid anything? Am I in a position to really be there for my kid in the way that I expect a school to be there if I've got all these things that I'm juggling?
True, and I'm totally sensitive to that, right? I had I grew up in a single parent household, right? And so the thing I felt like my mom did is she got me independent. Even when she was going and processing and still processing through the things that she needs to, she got me independent enough to at least deal with the basics. There's so much push towards having kids grow up, and independence doesn't necessarily mean growing up. Independence means independent in your thinking, independent in your actions, to the sense where our kids are so needy and somebody has to feed them. They're very needy. If I am working with this student and I walk away to this student, well, this student is upset because I've removed attention because they're not getting it in the home. So the best thing a parent can do is to heal themselves first and be honest that they need to be healed. Because at some point we all need to be healed from something.
Yeah.
And if we're not the one who needs to be healed, we need to stop damaging others. And so that's the big push. That goes both sides, right? There's educational hurt. We all have that horrible teacher. Let's be honest. I hope I've never been that horrible teacher. But, we have to be accountable.
Wow. I mean, you said a lot of powerful stuff there, especially in this idea of the independence of kids. And a lot of that is a resource thing. And when I think about resources, I think of like the 3-prong approach of home, school, and community, right? And so like the pandemic kind of gave us this energy where we're going to step away from the community piece of things. And to some degree, we stepped away from the school piece of things too.
We did.
But community is incredibly important. You think of churches, you think of community organizations, you think of all the places that you get to plug in during the course of the week, the month, which has people that actually genuinely care for you, people that are able to look at you and say you're not doing well, that are able to give you resources and attention, and are able to grow and develop alongside of you. And school's supposed to be that, and home is supposed to be that. And when you have all three of those things humming, where home lacks, school and community can step up and offer resources. When school lacks, home and community can, it's everything offering the resources together. And then we raise kids up with the skills that are necessary. I mean, how important is it for young girls and boys that are growing up in these single parent households, that parents may have 2 jobs and are struggling with this, that, or the other, to have that basketball team that they can go play on, to have that community group that they're able to go, the Boys and Girls Club or whatever, that they're able to go and get some of those resources that they may not be getting at home, to be able to get some of the mentorship. And we've continually turned our back on those kind of things and said, you know what, after the pandemic, and I've realized that I've enjoyed this free time at home, sitting on the couch in my sweats, watching the show from 10 years ago that I can binge. I'm not going to invest in that community organization anymore. I'm going to continue to not show up in that thing, because I've realized I enjoy my free time more than I enjoy plugging into the community.
Right.
And we've lost some of the resources that really developed the kids. And frankly, you have a generation of parents, which is now, those parents are a lot of people in our generation. That a generation that really struggled.
Yeah.
Because our parents gave us too much.
Yeah.
Too much, too easy. And so it's a generation that's struggling with the idea of entitlement, struggling with the idea that you have to work in order to feed yourself, in order to get anything that you want.
Yeah.
It doesn't just happen for you. And so you compound that times a whole nother generation.
Yeah.
And what type of entitlement are they walking around with?
It's crazy, because we're resource rich, but we're service poor. The resources are still out there, but people aren't using them, or they don't know about them. That's another thing. And so our children are so entitled. My own child gets candy, juice, and a toy every day. Why? He expects it. You got something for me? That's what he says.
Yeah.
Our kids, and it's because we didn't have it, right? So when you don't have something, you want to do more. I always tell teachers, don't judge the parent who doesn't show up to the parent-teacher conference, but their kid comes in name brand clothes, because it's all about a facade, right? If I can't do, I'm going to at least appear as if I can do. That's where we need to break down. The breakdown is, why can't you do? How can I help you do? And so then you're not just appearing, you're actually doing it.
And we get taught, like what you just described, that's narcissism. We get no, seriously. I mean, we get taught narcissism is this idea that you love the image of you more than you love the actual you.
That's scary.
And we get taught to love the image that we portray, to love what we want social media to appear to look like, what we want others in the community to think we are. We get taught to love that version of ourselves. So we fall in love, and as kids, we fall in love with the image of ourselves versus the actual us.
Yeah.
And we got to break this cycle a little bit.
Yeah.
And really just be weird and authentic. I mean, I'm a brother in a cowboy hat, okay? You know?
I didn't do my hair for this.
There's no attachment to the idea of what people think we are.
Yeah.
And that gives you a freedom that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to be what somebody else thinks you are.
For sure.
How is that authenticity allowed you to show up in ways that you wouldn't have otherwise been able to show up?
So yesterday I took my son to Douglas Park, which Douglas Park is known as the park, right?
We found a gun one time after a basketball game under a tree looking for our basketball.
But we knew what to do with it. We knew to go tell an adult. Kids these days
might
have picked it up. But I'm sitting out there because my son, he's feeling a little middle classy. I need to remind him, you know.
Rub some dirt on him.
Yeah. So he's out there, he's hanging with his peoples, he's running around with his friends, and it's me. I'm still Dr. Brown, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting there in my foldy chair and I'm reading a book. I'm the only person reading a book. And everyone is walking by looking at me like, why the heck is she out here reading a book, right? This person's over here smoking, this person's over here drinking, you know, but my son's having a great time. He's playing with children, he's happy, he went home, he passed out because he was, you know, had so much fun. And the thing is, we have to be so authentic to ourselves that I can still go down to Douglas Park, but I'm going to bring my book with me. Those types of things. Yeah. We have to embrace all sides. There's so many more people who probably wanted to bring a book, but it's weird to bring a book, right? There's some people who might not even wanted to be down there, or they were down there in their authentic self. An unhoused woman came and she literally unwrapped her stuff and laid it right on the sidewalk next to me. And she was comfortable and she fell asleep. And there were people, you know, kind of giving her an eye, and I could just imagine what that looks like. Me with my book, people over here, they're playing dice, cards, whatever. It was just authentic. And that's what we need to be. That's what we need to teach our children. Because if we keep teaching them that name brands is what makes them authentic, which, hey, I'm guilty of it. I love my kid in a nice...
There's nothing wrong with that idea, but like things have to be an authentic expression of you and not, if I wear this is what people think of me. You know? Like how many ugly outfits have you seen people walk around in that you know deep inside they don't think look good? Yeah. But because it's something that's popular, trendy, or whatever, that's what they're wearing.
For sure.
I mean, you know, it's a preacher thing all the time. It's like the thing I hate more than anything is watching pastors every single Sunday. They're wearing something else. It's like that blazer that's hanging on the back of the door. I wear that blazer every single Sunday. Now, there's lots of reasons for that. I have a lot of different blazers that I've had over the years. And in my head, some of it is humility. Realistically, some of it is I've gotten fat, and that's the only blazer I can fit. If we're being real, we're being authentic here.
We're authentic.
But the reason I haven't gone out and bought a whole bunch of new blazers is because I like the idea that I'm not scrambling thinking about how can I impress people by what I'm wearing. Yeah. I put that jacket on, I may pick a shirt and a tie, and that's just who I am. That's who I am, and I'm allowed to be authentically me because that's one more thing that I'm not thinking about. True. And I'm not thinking about how I'm perceived. I'm not thinking about what other people think of me when they see me in this. I'm just thinking about this serves its purpose. Yeah. And there's a beauty to removing some of the expectation from yourself. Sure. And when you're in that place, that authentic place, you lend permission to everybody else to be authentic.
For sure.
You sit down in the middle of Douglas Park with your book and you're relaxing, you give permission to everybody else to loosen up their belt that's too tight and unbutton their pants that are hurting them and kick their feet up and relax and just be part of community.
For sure.
And that's what community is. It's holding each other in our authentic selves, you know. I appreciate getting to see Nana so much growing up and like see way too much of her, you know, running around the house in a bra and sometimes not a bra and always having her hand in her pants and getting to see this idea of your hair doesn't have to be done all the time. Your nails don't have to be done. I mean, I went through a huge phase where I was growing my hair out and I'm wearing bandanas and whatever. Yeah. And we have this thing, it's not necessarily a white thing because it's passed along to our culture too, where like we have an expectation of like kempness and we want people go get a haircut, do something with your hair, and it's like this is my authentic hair. My hair is curly and it can get nappy, and this is how my hair is. True. So why should I have to go cut a piece of my identity off and get it lined up and trimmed up and or faded up for you to accept me? Yeah. I'm suddenly not professional by the way that my hair naturally is.
It's crazy.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's completely ridiculous. But somebody with long blonde straight hair
Yeah.
can throw their hair in a messy bun or
True.
whatever, roll out of bed and a ponytail, and you're professional.
Mm-hmm.
But my curly hair or my nappy hair or whatever, not perfect. It just doesn't make sense.
It's so weird. I started to lock my hair, and everyone's like, why are you getting locks? Why would you lock your hair? You have beautiful hair. Like, I know my hair is beautiful. It's also beautiful locked when I do it, right? But I have the $1,000 wigs, right? I've worn the lashes and the makeup, and I do, and those are beautiful.
Yeah.
But it's just too much. I'm a simple girl. I really am. Like, I just popped my nails off last night,
Yeah.
but that's because they were irritating me, and
And your nails are too much.
yeah, it's a lot, and they were beautiful. Come on, be honest.
Yeah, too much. She had little sequins and
Rhinestones.
lima beans and other stuff on her. I mean, just too much.
Lima beans.
Too much.
They really helped in the school setting because they calmed kids down. They can like rub my nails. Weird, right?
Witchcraft.
Witchcraft. Witchcraft in the schools, probably. But you know, and I love those things, but that's not me all the time.
No, let it be an expression, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you get all dressed up, you get all dolled up, whatever. You know, if that makes you feel good, awesome. And let that be an expression. But the expectation, like that you're not professional or you're not prepared,
Yeah.
if you're not this.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to say that a woman I mean, we've gotten to a point as a culture where we're not going to say a woman is unprofessional because she doesn't wear makeup, right?
True. Well,
I mean, there's some places. Now,
Some places.
now obviously, if you have there's certain professions that are excluded, right? There's this idea of like, if you're going to be in the media or whatever, like there's there's kind of expectations that even men wear makeup. I mean, there's
yeah.
some of those things, and some of that's just for camera, and maybe those are places that we need to break down some of that stigma and expectation.
For sure.
But we've laxed in certain places, but we don't understand the cultural differences sometimes in those places of
Sure.
like, you're holding certain people to a completely different expectation than other people.
For sure.
And that trickles down to community, right?
Right.
I mean, the amount of ridicule that young black boys go through.
Yeah, we've worked really hard in the school system to break the whole hoodie situation. I told them, like, I was a star student, teacher's pet. I was all of those things. But if
Nerd.
Okay. I've got contacts and not glasses now, though.
Nerd.
I was a nerd, right? But if
Cool.
my hair wasn't done, I'm going to put a hoodie over my head. And it's not because I'm being defiant. It's not because I want to look ghetto or any of these other derogatory terms that they want to throw at us. It's because my hair wasn't done and I wasn't confident. But now as an adult, if my hair's not done, I'm going to put a scarf over it. Our children have hoodies. It's not because they're lazy. Their hair's not done. Mama didn't get to that hair.
Also, have you ever worn a hoodie?
So comfortable.
So comfortable.
So comfortable.
It's like literally like wearing a robe and a towel and a blanket, like all together.
Yeah.
So if you could wear that,
Yeah.
if you could wear sweats every single day,
Man.
you're not gonna tell me that you wouldn't wear sweats, especially in a setting that's as uncomfortable as a classroom.
Right.
When's the last time you've been in a classroom?
Those little chairs.
These little tiny chairs with the
man.
desk attached to it that's barely enough room to write, and you're spending hours of your life in this setting that's bleached and fluorescent light.
You're talking to kids.
It's not an environment that's comfortable or, conducive for life, let alone learning.
Right.
And so why would you not seek comfort wherever
Right.
you could find it?
Right.
And there's certain people in the community that walk around with their hoods up and hoodies. We would never ever say anything about them, but suddenly because you're dark complected and you have a hoodie,
Yeah.
that suddenly means something different. It's just we hold different people in different communities to different expectations.
For sure. Look at the rich and the celebrities. They don't wear suits when paparazzi catches them. They're in jogging pants and tennis shoes. It's comfortable. It's comfortable. But we forget that, especially for our children. We want them to look pristine, at least look the part. But we complain about when parents send them looking the part, right? But when they don't look the part, it shakes us up, right? We feel a little insecure and nervous about how our children act, or our girls in crop tops, things of that nature, right?
I mean, certainly there's I think everybody would agree that there's a line
For sure.
somewhere between comfort and appropriateness. But I mean, I think it extends so far, even beyond just the kids. I mean, you think about teachers and some of these things. It's like, I want you to be in a comfortable environment, that's uncomfortable enough that you're focused, right?
Yeah.
You can't be so comfortable that you're falling asleep in the environment.
Sure.
But you need to be safe and comfortable enough that you're willing to be open, that you're willing to be vulnerable, that you're willing to really connect. Because it's the connection that helps you learn, right? I mean, you've taught for all these years, right?
Right.
You have to make a connection and have some element of interaction in order to really learn. And when the environment is so clinical,
Yeah.
you know, unless the teacher really wants to, I mean, I don't really want to be taught by somebody in a suit because I feel so much different than them, right? I feel so disconnected because here I am in my sweats or whatever, and you're wearing a tie.
Yeah.
And I don't need you to wear a tie to teach
Right.
to teach me. I'm not receiving what you're saying so much more. You're already my high school teacher or whatever. I could see a professor, you know,
Yeah.
or, you know, a young person that feels like they need to garner some respect, but
Yeah.
I don't think kids need that.
I think it's important. I always tell teachers to be comfortable. One, because we have to look at what's happening in schools, the amount of school shootings. We can't not talk about that.
Yeah.
You can't run in heels.
You're right.
It's difficult. So I always wear my teaks, or I'll wear tennis shoes. With my job, I have to wear tennis shoes at sometimes because things happen and I'm the one they call. So we need to be able to keep our kids safe, number one.
Yeah.
And number two, we need to educate them. And if we're not comfortable, then it's very difficult for our students to learn because they pick up on everything. I always tell teachers, if you are fighting with your husband, you better take care of that before you walk in those doors because your kids will pick it up.
Yeah.
If your kids are driving you crazy before you come home, your students are going to pick it up. It's a balance, right? You have to take care of yourself first, whatever that may look like.
How much of, you know, we pay a lot of attention to school shootings, some of these environments where the kids really aren't safe. But you get to see on a daily basis of the stuff that kids are dealing with and the behavioral issues and how, in a lot of ways, schools, forget a gun, school's not safe for any of them.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the kind of stuff that's happening in school on a daily basis?
It's the mental health crisis. There used to be a thing where divorced parents would handle it amicably in the school system, but outside, they would lose it, whatever, you know?
Yeah.
But the issue now is we're having divorced parents. Give me my child. Well, the court order says this. You have to have court orders for everything in the school system. Kids are having little personal notes. Don't give to mom. Call dad if mom picks up. Call dad if mom picks up. We're trying to educate, right? But we have to keep that kiddo safe. We're having former students come back killing people, right? Let's talk about going on lockdown. I just look at the news. I look at the news, I see who the perpetrators and who the victims are, and then I figure out who their students are because those are the kids that are coming on my caseload next. The news gives me everything I need to know. Because those are the ones. We're having kids in schools where your uncle just shot my dad last night and I have to come into school and I have to see your face.
What do you think's gonna happen?
Yeah, like it's, and then we're saying gangs. No, that's anger, right? Your uncle killed my dad and I'm expected to come to school the next day and be merry and not have anger towards you, even though I'm only in the 3rd grade and now you're telling me I'm angry? That vengeance is within me. And that's when it goes back to community. It goes back to how is this going to trickle down? Our kids are losing it. How many kids are on medication? How many kids are on medication and need it? Or how many kids are not on medication and need it?
Yeah.
How many are on medication and don't need it?
Yeah.
And what's really happening? It's very difficult. Our kids are struggling. I was in a class today. I'll give you about maybe 15 kids were there. At least 9 of them were losing it. And I don't mean temper tantrum. Kicking lockers, throwing things. You think that teacher's coming back?
And I mean, teachers don't have the resources to deal with that.
No.
But what's the degradation of the idea of the guidance counselor? I mean, my viewpoint is guidance counselors have essentially become, people that manage schedules, right? They're no longer really school counselors.
Yeah.
Is that...
At the elementary level, they are.
Okay.
They're pulling social skills groups. But if half my school needs a social skills group,
there's one counselor.
There's one counselor.
Yeah.
It goes back to funding. They pull me in. We tier our kids. Tier 1, they got it. Tier 2, need a little help. Tier 3, sound the alarm. I am helping transport kids to MUPC. That's the psychology word, right? I am helping families who are in serious crises, right? Our house burned down last night. Dr. Brown, how can you help? Then we go pull the resources, right? And sometimes we have the resources and sometimes we don't. But people are pulling so hard on the resources in one instance and not using them in others, and that's the conflict.
When it's different people in different communities that are pulling them, it's not equal across the board. One counselor has these resources and has these abilities, and the other counselor doesn't, or doesn't know how to tap into those things, or frankly may not care to tap into those things.
Right. I can go to a South Side school of Columbia, and they have a plethora of resources. The kids are going on field trips. The kids are getting new playgrounds and things. And then I can go to a North Side school, and they don't even have air right now because the heat's still on. Who didn't think to turn the heat off before April, right? It's little things like that this is the struggle. I'm not going to be able to learn when I'm sweating. And then I go outside, and I'm not going to sit down and learn when I hear cars going past.
And this may be the only place that I have that has heat or air.
Yeah.
This may be the only place that I have that gets a decent meal.
I've been looking for beds for a family for months.
It's a struggle out there for sure. And what benefit would something like a social worker in schools or those kind of things? I mean, would that provide a benefit?
Yeah.
Having those resources on hand, on site, readily available.
Where do we get these people from? We have to realize that the pandemic did one thing, and that was death. We've killed social workers. We've killed doctors. We've killed counselors, right? COVID killed jobs. The need is still there. It's even greater. We physically don't have the people, right?
Yeah.
It killed all those college students who were going into social work. Some of them died.
Yeah.
That's the hard part.
Well, and people don't want to. I mean, the reality is people don't want to do it.
True. It's no money.
But forget about the money. I mean, it was never about the money. It's not like
True.
It's not like I raise my hand and say, "Hey, I want to be a pastor," and or you want to be a teacher or whatever. It's not about the money, but the whole mentality of service.
Yeah.
Generation after generation after generation have slowly you call it capitalism, call it all these different things. I mean, social media doesn't help this idea of me.
True.
Where's the money in it? Where's the glory in it?
True.
But at the end of the day, nothing feels better than helping somebody else.
For people who had that instilled.
But don't you think we all have that?
No, I think it's our childhood.
You don't think that's innate in all of us?
Not anymore.
Wow.
Not anymore. I can go on social media. I can look at this person with a nice thin waist, and then I can go and I can buy a $60 waist trainer, and my waist isn't as thin, but it looks real good. Right? It's that instant gratification.
But that doesn't feel nearly as good as doing something that's not about you.
For us.
That's crazy.
It's hard.
I have so much trouble even like comprehending that idea that like, because I don't think of us as being overly unique. Like it's not a special thing to me, the mentality of like that I know if I pour my cup out that it's gonna get filled.
Yeah.
And that I know that there's so much abundance that I don't need to worry about. I don't need to have that scarcity mindset of like that I need to cling, because I know what it looks like. I know what it feels like to not have anything. And so I'm not clinging because frankly, I'm not really scared of going back to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
I'm not afraid of that.
Right.
And so I don't feel the need to like have this scarcity mindset. I feel like there's enough to go around, and that I need not be afraid of sharing with other people, because I always get more. But you're saying people don't
ask people what would they do with $1 million. First thing they're gonna say, buy a house, buy a car. My first thing I'm gonna say, I'm gonna go ahead and drop my 10% off at the church.
But you know our community though, like a lot of people be like, I'm gonna buy my mama a house, I'm gonna buy. But see,
But
even
not
that's
anymore.
not giving back. That's not, and frankly, that's not really a giving back mindset anyway. That's really just like paying your dues versus like really.
Yeah. Right? I'm gonna help build up Fun City because my passion is there, and we deserve a building. I'm gonna invest in our kids.
Gonna help.
Now I'm probably gonna get myself a
Of course.
Porsche or something.
But you're not gonna do that first, and you're not gonna do that with the largest chunk.
No.
Wow.
If we ask people, what would you do with $1 million? Their very first thing is more than likely not going to be an act of service.
Do you think that's out of fear of, if they don't feed themselves first, that there's not going to be anything left for them to eat?
We teach that, right? Finance, pay yourself first. It's important, but they always say pay yourself first, right? That's the first thing of a budget. Pay yourself first.
I agree with that.
Put something in your savings, right?
Right, but that's not paying yourself first.
True.
Not in the mindset that that's not, go buy yourself a car, go do something nice for yourself. That's not really paying yourself first.
Yeah.
That's like reward yourself first. That's not paying yourself first.
True, but the way that we are being taught, it is the me. What can you do to better yourself? It goes back to things like trickle-down economics.
Wow.
Does it really work? Well, if I feel like I'm at the top, why do we all think we're at the top?
Oh, gosh.
That's getting deep, huh?
It's crazy because, like, I think maybe I'm just broken. Like, I think, like, I poured so much money into like these different things. Like I need you to know, this podcast isn't about me. I'm not making any money from this. I don't really have any desire to make money. The whole point of the thing is that we need to have these conversations that we all, somewhere inside of us, have this yearning to grow and evolve, and we need to hear other perspectives. We need to learn.
True.
And like all the money that it costs to buy cameras and microphones and equipment and all that stuff comes out of my pocket, and there's, I could be doing all kinds of nice things, but like there's a huge piece of me that believes if this could help one person, that's worth every single dollar.
For sure.
It's about helping that one person, because I know if we can help the one person, then that person can help somebody else, and before you know it, everybody's been touched.
For sure.
But why are we so afraid of that first dollar, that conversation with a stranger, even somebody that we know? Why are we afraid of that olive branch?
Because of that instant gratification. If I don't see it come back to me ASAP, why would I give that dollar? Right? Why would I invest my time into this small business if I don't see my return of investment immediately? Why will I invest my time in these little poor children if I don't see my return of investment immediately? Right? How many have that self-fulfilling prophecy? I'm going to coach you in this sport because when you get big, you'll remember me. I'm going to help you in this thing because there will be a return of investment. But it doesn't happen always. And so people have just learned to just stick to themselves. And it goes back to the pandemic. We weren't investing in each other. We had to use our brain and our creativity to make something and sell it on Etsy or Amazon.
Well, we weren't investing in ourselves either, though. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, it's really not even an investing in other people thing. Do you have an investing mindset or do you not have an investing mindset? Because you're either investing or you're spending.
True.
And the energy that we're spending is capital. I mean, we're spending capital. And is that investment always going to be in yourself? Are you willing to use some of that capital on other people?
But be honest, spending is more fun.
Is it though?
It is, because investment takes too long. We can't wait.
But if you invest, nothing feels better than spending other people's money. I'll tell you that.
True.
I'll tell you that. It's the truth.
True.
Nothing feels better than spending money you didn't have to work to earn.
True.
You can't do that unless you invest. You cannot do that unless you're willing to invest in other people and other things.
But
if you
I get
only
that.
ever invest in yourself, you can only ever spend the money that you work for, the resources and capital that you work for.
I get that. You get that.
Oh my gosh.
Does the world get that?
That's terrifying.
It is.
That's
This
terrifying.
is the life we live.
Gosh. So basically, we're all doomed because in
No.
20 years, there's not going to be anything.
We're not, because when we touch one person, they'll touch another. Now, we're
Will
definitely
they?
circling the drain,
Will they?
but we're not falling in yet.
Will they, though? I mean,
will.
because you're talking about a mindset that leads to the degradation of all community structures.
But it's not always negative, because there will be someone like you who says, hey, I'm just going to do this podcast to see. There will be someone like me who says, hey, I'm going to volunteer for this organization when I know I can build my own and profit from it, right? There will be people like us in the next generation. There will be people in that generation's generation, right? There will be people who keep sustaining it. Now, will it be what it could have been if more people? No. It's not that we're going backwards, we're just standing still. And that's the problem.
But, I always tell my kids,
Yeah.
there's no such thing as standing still. You're either moving forward or you're moving backwards. There's no such thing, because the world, the treadmill, is moving.
Well, maybe
you
we're doing
stand
this.
still, it's going to pull you right back.
Maybe we're doing this. This is a little bit better.
I'll take 2 steps forward, 1 step back
Yeah.
over standing still any day.
Okay. I can respect that.
So as we talk about the steps forward, what role are you going to play in that? What role do you want to play in that?
It's difficult. It's difficult because I want to say I'm going to be this awesome community activist. I definitely plan on keep doing what I'm doing. But is that enough? I don't know. And the thing is, people who work in mental health, we probably have the most mental health issues because you start to take on everybody else, right? And so I have to realize that my role is not just being Dr. Brown. I have to be Patrika of the Patrika. And now I got to be mom. So I want to say that I'll keep going, and I will in some capacity, right? Because it's in me. I can't just stop. It's in me. But I can't say that I'm going to build the next community center. I can't say that I'm always going to be the one that's passing out lunch in the park. I've done it.
Yeah.
But I can't say those things are going to continue because it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard work, but it's also hard work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your so you were always the person that was like not gonna have any kids. First of all, we have to go way back to Nana's attic, okay? Me and Trika used to play with I would call them action figures.
They're dolls, dude.
But they were Barbie dolls or whatever. I had the action figures, the G.I. Joe and Max Steel and all that stuff. And so we would play with these things. And for whatever reason, Trika always thought I'd have like 30 kids and all this stuff.
I felt like you wanted it.
And I always thought, I thought for a long time, and I don't know that I disagree, that my one calling in life above all else was just to be a dad. I felt like that was what I was put here to do, to be a dad.
Do you still agree with that?
Not
sentiment?
to everybody's child, but and then having Gibson was a confirmation.
Yeah.
Like, if I do nothing else, then I will have achieved what I was called to do. And just being here for this little boy. And you were always very adamant about wanting to be Auntie Trika.
Yeah.
I don't want to have kids. I want to jet set, be around, not have the responsibility and stuff. And then you have a little boy come into your life that melts this this ice frozen heart.
I wouldn't say ice frozen.
I mean, it's either ice frozen or devil. You get to choose.
I was consciously aware that I wanted to have a certain type of freedom in my life, so I actively chose not to have children. And I would suggest that everyone who is not fully prepared to have a child to take the proper precautions and not have a child. I think we push, have a kid, it makes you whole, make it so whole. I was a whole person before I had my child.
Hopefully, you're a whole person without your child.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, but having children, it's a beautiful thing.
And it's changed you, and certainly changed your perspective on the world.
Yeah.
What is your culpability now that you have him? Your responsibility towards this next generation of changing things.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, one of the barriers in having kids, I mean, inevitably, is this understanding of like, the world's kind of not what it was.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the world's going to be in 20, 50 years. And do I want to bring a life into this world that I'm not happy with?
True.
And so then you carry this immense responsibility on your back of, I chose to bring a life into this world that I knew wasn't perfect and that I knew was going the wrong direction.
Yes.
And now I carry ultimate responsibility for doing everything in my power to make sure that that world is a better place for that life.
True.
So what responsibility do you carry now, Mama?
I don't want that responsibility on my back, but
Can't escape it.
this little guy came into my life, and I truly feel like God wanted me to be a mom, and so he was going to make it happen. It really was. I look back, my favorite poem is Mother to Son by Langston Hughes. My favorite book is Love You Forever by Robert Munch. That's about a mother and a son. That's about as plain as, yeah, the Lord had to just bop me on my head and be like, girl, get it together, you're a mom.
You don't always get it the first time.
So this kid is left on my doorstep, so to speak. Pretty much. It was. But I just have this feeling of so much desire I want his life to be perfect, right? And I know it's not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
And it goes back to teaching him skills. Getting him independent. Everyone's always laughing at me. He's 4 and he knows how to use a microwave. I'm like, well, it's a skill he needs to learn.
Yeah.
You know, he'll know how to do a budget pretty soon, you know, eventually. These are the types of things where we have to realize that we can't play with this thing called life. We can't, because kids are so impressionable. There's been things I've slipped up as a parent.
Of course.
My son's done some crazy stuff at school, and the only thing I can go is, yep, I know where that came from.
Yep, that's me.
That was me. That was YouTube. It was YouTube, my bad. That was a little extra YouTube time this week, right?
Yeah.
But we have to be accountable. So the responsibility comes from recognizing where we fall short and picking those pieces up and recognize when we're kicking it. Like, my kiddo's so bright.
Yeah.
He's so smart. He wasn't when I got him.
Yeah.
And so my responsibility was, if I am truly going to allow him to call me mommy, what does that mean?
Like full investment, full buy-in.
For sure.
To say, I'm taking responsibility.
Right.
Good, bad, ugly.
Yeah.
There's not going to be indifferent.
Right.
There's not going to be apathy. There's not going to be,
Right.
well, that's not on me.
Yeah.
Every single thing. You know, I always tell Jamila, like, from my experience, you know, I the resources and the tools are important for me about Gibson, but the one thing that is the most important thing to me is that he knows that he's loved above everything else.
True.
Above everything else, that's the most important thing, that he knows that without a shadow of a doubt that he's loved, and that love is in no way conditional.
Yes.
I don't care what he does, what he says, how he behaves, how he develops or grows, that he's loved. And the intention that we walk through parenthood, that matters
Yeah.
so much, more than we even give it credit to
For sure.
sometimes. And like getting to watch Zay through these years that you've been this this presence in his life. I mean, from where he was
Yeah.
to where he is.
It's a girl.
It's like sometimes, I know it's hard to do as a parent, but sometimes you just gotta sit back and you just gotta be like,
Yeah.
that doesn't happen without you.
Yeah. Our bond is crazy. He was at basketball practice and he fell, and the coach, of course, you know, they swarmed him. You okay? Okay? And he goes, I want my mommy. And I'm just kind of like chilling. I'm like, oh,
That's me.
okay. Like, it was weird. It was just a moment for me because, you know, I know I'm his mommy. I know. But for him to just be like, no, you can't help me, coach. Like, I want my mommy. That was just so powerful for me to be like, wow, I'm responsible for kissing your boo-boos. And what does that look like when you're 10? When you're 15, when you're 30 or 40 and you and your spouse are debating, or what does that look like? I am your mommy from now until. And that's big. That's big. And so the biggest part of being a parent is, of course, it's taking care of me first and making sure that I am a whole person before I can give to him.
Which is an intentionality of making sure that you're taking the time, that you're doing the work, that you're carving out the space for you in the midst of having a stressful job and these other things, in the midst of having this, 4-year-old, to also have the space for you to grow and develop, which is hard, especially young children,
Yeah.
Don't tell me about your 14-year-old and how hard it is for you to, carve out space for yourself.
Yeah.
It's a whole different thing with a really, really young kid, right? What do you think the way that you were raised, how do you think that's impacted the way that you parent?
It goes back to that independence. My mom needed me to be independent because she was going to school, she was working multiple jobs, and she was just, we like to say Maslow before Bloom's, meaning we work on the basic stuff, right? Food, shelter, water, self-love, self-esteem, all of those things before we can talk about education and all those other things, right? You need that. And so my mom was so focused on that I actually got my doctorate degree. I defended my dissertation while Zay was laying next to me on the bed sleep, and I was praying to God that this baby does not wake up while I'm defending my dissertation over Zoom. But it was one of those things where I am so driven to show him how driven I am. I love reading. But even if I don't feel like reading, I have to show my son that I read because I want him to read. I have to do and show as opposed to tell. Yeah. Because that's how kids get it. I saw everything that my mom did, right? And I watched what she did more than what she told me. Yeah. And it's important to do that with our kiddos. When we parent, we have to parent authentically. And he sees mommy make mistakes. Of course. I apologize to my son. That's a hard thing to say, me as the adult.
There's humility there.
Yeah. I'm sorry for yelling at you. Mommy's just a little frustrated. I had a long day. That's hard.
There's humanity on the other side of that too, right?
It is.
You're engendering a relationship through vulnerability and this open dialogue. Yeah. Which we forget that the parenthood piece is relational, right?
It is.
It's not dictatorial. It's not, this hierarchy. It's relational. Yeah. And that relationship goes back and forth, and you have people that, parents that look up when they get older, and my kid doesn't really want to take care of me. Well, you didn't do that great a job of taking care of your kid, and what makes you think that you've developed this relationship to where they're going to want to take care of you all of a sudden?
Right. I felt like we were able to ask questions growing up, and then in another sense we weren't.
Yeah. There were certain barriers there.
There were certain barriers, and so based on developmental, I allow Zay to explore things, and I am allowing him to ask me. I'm allowing him to challenge me a little bit. I'm allowing him to challenge some of my teachings, right? And growing up, I don't know if we necessarily had that. I felt like I had to move to Memphis in order to challenge some of my upbringing. Yeah. While it was a great upbringing, it wasn't for me.
It's never perfect.
Yeah, right.
Never perfect. And the space and the maturity to be able to step away from it and say, I loved this. I didn't care for this.
Yeah.
I'm going to make this shift. And it's hard for parents to understand sometimes of,
Yeah.
you know, that you didn't get it 100% right. And there wasn't an expectation that you would either.
Yeah.
And also that you have to treat each kid differently. Just like we have to treat adults differently.
For sure.
I remember so fondly growing up. Fondly is really not the appropriate word to use. I remember really dreading going to church with Nana growing up, and how much we hated
Church.
hated how long church was, hated the, like, it just felt so stuffy, and it just always felt so fake to me.
We had to dress up, I felt like.
But just to come from those kids and, you know, like, to be in the place where we're, like, faithful servants now, and very much involved and very enthusiastic about the whole thing, it's just makes me chuckle sometimes, because I just think, like, that was the last thing I ever wanted to be. I remember growing up and, like, thinking, like, I don't want to be one of those Christians. Like, I maybe not even want to be a Christian at all. It's just like a turn off. What led you to that place of, like, saying, this is the place that I want to be, this is the church that I want to be at, and I want to be heavily involved, and I want to be this kind of beacon of faith?
I love how my church allows me to grow as I serve. And so I started off just assisting, you know, with the children. I'm great with children. I love children. They recognize that. Well, then now I'm teaching. Now I'm the lead teacher. Now I'm over the whole youth department. And it really was about, I can't tell you the Bible front to back. I can't. I can reference a couple verses. I can hint at a couple of...
To be fair, that's
things.
not an expectation.
But from the outside looking and growing up, we were
like
expected to memorize certain things. I briefly remember being in St. Louis at our great grandma's church, and I mistook maybe John and Peter or something. Like, who remembers John and Peter, you know, as a kid? And so, and it was all like, oh, baby, you. And it's like, no, like, teach me. That means you didn't teach me. If kids don't know, it's not a kid issue. It's an adult issue. But I won't go on that because I get personal about that. It's an adult issue, right? And so now that I'm able to learn that I can teach my children about Abraham because I'm learning alongside of them, right?
Which is so empowering.
It is.
Right? Because you're enthusiastic and passionate because you've just learned something. And everybody, when you learn something, you have an investment in the thing that you've learned.
Right.
And what greater environment for you to pass that knowledge along. And to demonstrate this is how you learn. And not be afraid of that. I mean, I think definitely growing up, like, we were afraid of, like, not knowing the right answers. Which is really funny because you're not surrounded... On the surface, yes, it does become that narcissistic thing of, like, we're Christians, we go to church, this is what it looks like. But, like, I don't remember ever seeing a Bible on anybody's nightstand or any tables. I don't remember ever seeing anybody pick it up. I don't remember anybody ever praying in a genuine way. Maybe a passing prayer before a meal or something, but never in a genuine or authentic way.
Now I lay me down to sleep.
I don't remember any praise music, like a ton of praise music. I remember every once in a while in the car, but I don't remember any, like, any worship or devotionals. I don't remember anything outside of what was showy. But then to step out of that and to see, you know, as our faith lives kind of take off, you see everybody around us have a faith life that really takes off. You know, my parents' faith life takes off. Your mom's faith life kind of takes off. Nana's faith life becomes a different thing. It's really interesting how, you know, that spark can kind of make this catalyst for everything to evolve.
For sure.
And it's awesome, you know? As much as I've hated you through all of these years, you inspire me. I always know that I can lean on you if I need to. I always know that you're out there pushing. No matter what the thing is. And I always know that I've got a sister that has my back.
For sure.
And that's invaluable. and for the way that you serve, the way that you love, the way that you're passionate about being the change that you want to see in the world. I thank you. I thank you for the time and for that big old heart in your chest, however icy it used to be. But for each and every one of you, I thank you so much for tuning into the Side by Side podcast. You got a call in your life, a call to make a difference in whatever capacity that you feel like you can engender that change. However small, however big, the first step is the first step. Being willing to make that change, being willing to evolve and grow. And I don't know about you, but I'm excited about tomorrow, the next breath, the next step. Thanks for tuning in. I hope to see you soon.
We gotta work on the problems. We gotta link up to solve them. We gotta keep on evolving. Gotta be side by side. Give it up. Gotta be side by side. Everyone. Gotta be side by side. Yeah. We gotta be side by side. Gotta be side by side. We gotta be side by side. Everyone. Gotta be side by side.
Nana, you want to be on Michael's podcast?
No.
Why not? Support your grandchild.
No filter. Ain't Orlando filter. You know, I'll say what I got to say.
Nana, you don't got 50 more years left, so you can afford to let some of the cats out the bag.
Was it nice? You just told me I should say about your friend. Was it nice to say, Nana, you don't have 50 more years left?
Nana, if you didn't know you don't got 50 years left, then we need to put you somewhere.
Sign the papers.
If I didn't know I had 50 more years left, what?
If you didn't already know you don't got 50 years left, then we need to put you somewhere. We need to go ahead and commit you somewhere.
We can't put me anywhere because I'm in my right mind.
Not if you don't know.
My right mind.
Nana, not if you don't know you don't got 50 years left. You're not in your right
I don't know
mind.
that I don't have 50 years. You don't know that.
Nana.
I
Nana,
might live 50 more years. Who knows?
no, you can't.
Nana, I
Not with
don't
Kool-Aid in your veins. That's not a thing.
Kool-Aid.
Say what? Trina?
I didn't say nothing. It wasn't me.
Gotta start.
You and Michael trying to gang up on me?
No, ma'am.
You gotta start right now with drinking some water.
You ain't gonna tell me I gotta start right now drinking some water. I don't want any water. Just got me drinking Pepsi.
Just got them drinking the Pepsi. Put her on. It'll be comedy.
You just lost a year right there.
Nora said I tried to give her a cup of water. I don't want no water.
Michael said you just lost a year right there.
Michael said I just lost a year because I want that Pepsi. Instead of water. Well,
Oh, Nana.
all right then.
All right.
I'm talking to both of y'all.
Okay. Love you, Nana.
Love you,
Love
Nana.
you too, Trigger. Love you too, Michael.
Okay.
I'm beat your ass when I see y'all. When I talk to y'all later.
We're still in the church.
All right.
I forgot y'all still church. Don't beat your butt when
Matter
I
of
see
fact,
y'all.
you know what? Matter of fact, Nana, I think I got time tonight. Matter of
You know
fact.
what? Michael, shut up.
Oh, you done got her blood pressure. Oh, she's. We're gonna talk about you in the podcast, okay, Nana?
Okay, talk to y'all later.
All right, love you.
Love you too.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.